And since I really haven't said anything yet, we're good. You guys all seeing it? I assume you guys are seeing what I'm seeing, right? Yep, you're all seeing it. Okay, good. Okay, perfect. And going back to my military days, I don't know if J-Rock is here. I assume he is, but you know, and we have some other military members. You know, the military loves their slideshows, but it is what it is. It is a good way to get information out. Like I said, there's 59 slides here, so I'll try to go at a pretty reasonable tempo, and it'll be recorded if I go too fast. You can ask for clarifications at the end, or you can go watch the VOD, which I'll be posting as an unlisted video on my channel. If you have any questions, ask them in the test chat, and officers, if you'll kind of collect all the questions for me, because I'm not going to be watching chat the entire time, I'd appreciate it. But if you just preface it with question in all caps, it'll make it a little easier for us to understand what is a question and what isn't. And then also at the end, at the very last slide, I'll have you guys come in and you can raise your hand and I will bring you up. If you'd like to ask your question via voice chat, you can do that. So getting into it, the most important characteristic we're looking for is people that know how to be a decent human. And I know that's, there's a lot more than just being a decent human. Obviously, we're looking for skilled people and stuff like that too, but I can teach people, we can teach people to be skilled. Like, it's not that difficult to be a skilled player. It just takes some effort, right? And if you're willing to put in the effort, we've got some hardcore MMO veterans in this guild already, in the leadership. And we have a lot of plans to have officers and things, class leaders, profession leaders that can help you guys and get people where they need to be. But I need people that understand how to be a decent human in the aspect of you don't have extreme mental breakdowns where they're unnecessary, right? And you can have disagreements without it turning into a big show. And, you know, we're going to have disagreements. And look, you know, we have politics. We talk about politics every once in a while in the voice chat. A lot of guilds ban politics. I believe that people should be allowed to talk about what they want to talk about. And you know, that's where I'm at. You know, if we have to ban them, we will. Or I might put in like a voice channel, you know, political beat up channel to where if you're a distraction, if it's consistently a distraction, you guys might have to just go to that channel and yell at each other in there. But at the end of the day, we're looking for decent people. And so far, we have a fantastic group. And the people that have been active know we've got a really good group of people. And that's the main thing we're looking for. And look, we've had to remove people. And, you know, just this last week, we removed someone that wasn't a fit, wasn't what we're looking for. So we will do so in the future as well when we find people that don't fit that. So this is by far and away the most important thing that we need. I can work with about anything else, but I can't be your dad. I can't teach you how to be a good person. That was, if you're an adult and you haven't figured that out by now, then this isn't the place for that. And like I said, we're going to have a lot of plans I'm going to put out today, but remember, you know, it's all going to change because obviously we're a guild for a game that doesn't exist yet. In the aspect of both Ashes and Pax Dei, that's the case. And in Pax Dei's case, we don't know a tremendous amount about the game yet. Ashes, we do know a fair amount because they've been so open. But even with that, like, so many things change in game development. So we'll have to that is the guild is Donward and not Rive. That's true. So a lot of things will change. I don't know if you guys can hear this, but I don't think there's audio on this anyways. This is just a funny little video. You guys have probably seen this where this dude goes and punches this. He kicks the fuck out of this kangaroo here. And, you know, I've been that fucking kangaroo before. And if we, metaphorically speaking, you know, we've all been punched in the face like that before, metaphorically speaking. And some of us probably actually have been punched in the face like that. And you have that blank stare like, what the fuck just happened? Well, that kind of stuff happens in guilds and especially in high stakes PvP guilds like Ashes of Creation. People are going to get punched in the face. As a guild, we will metaphorically get punched in the face probably quite a bit since we're a brand new guild. We're still on the smaller side. And so what we need is people that are able to roll with the punches and can continue to fight despite some setbacks. example of something that could change. I have this idea of caravan PvP. We're not attacking unless provoked. However, that could change. It could be a free-for-all like it kind of was in Arcade and similar games. And if it is, we'll just attack everything. If everybody's attacking all our caravans, we'll attack all theirs and we'll abandon this rule. Also, this little theory that I have about the vassal chains and caravans is that there's this concept of vassal chains. They redid the vassal chains in Ashes last year. There was a stream where they redid the entire structure of the vassals, and how this works is there's now buffer nodes in one of the streams last year. And if you read through the wiki a million times like I have, there's this concept of nodes and node wars, and nodes within a vassal chain cannot go to war with each other. And also, every vassal chain underneath a parent will take benefits from that vassal, from the parent node. So there's really a lot of incentives built into the game for any node within your vassal network to work with that node. So caravans coming into your node and caravans leaving your node, in general, you're heavily incentivized to not destroy those, because those are helping build up your node. And they introduced this concept of node commodities last year as well in the caravan stream, and that also works into that. There's a lot of interplay. There's a lot of trade agreements that'll potentially be going between your own vassal chains. There's a lot of incentive to not work with chains outside of your vassal network. And certainly the buffer nodes are just going to be pissed off at everybody because they're not even in a chain, right? So they're probably not going to be friendly either. So I think there will be ample opportunity to attack if we're in vassal chain B. Imagine a chain of several nodes here all along the Riverlands going into Sand Squall Desert. You can't go to node wars with any of these nodes, but you could go to node wars with these, and you probably will be in many cases, because guess what? There's resources here that don't really exist in high quantity here. So we're going to be going up here to try to get these resources. They're not going to be happy about that. And so we're going to be at war with them, and then we'll be attacking their caravans. They'll attack our caravans. So I think that's kind of more how the caravan interplay might work. We don't know yet. Again, it's just Rive's theory, which Rive is wrong a lot. You'll find out. So who knows? General Discord stuff. If you're missing channels, if you go into, a lot of people have told me that they're missing channels, and this is kind of a problem with Discord. If you go to channels and roles and you go Insta, are you available? You know where this is, right? You go, don't you go, where you do it at? Oh, show all channels. Click that. That's the main thing, right? Insta.
So you can actually, if you go to the very top and just click that down arrow on Genesis, the very, very top, there you go. And it's right, it'll be right there, show all channels. And so you just make sure that that's checkbox, and it'll show every channel that you have permissions to.
Perfect. Yeah. So some people have said they're not seeing some channels. So it's just a thing with Discord. I haven't figured out a way around this, because as I add channels, some of them you're not following or you won't be seeing. So just go.
Yeah, just put that checkbox in there. It'll keep every new channel we add will automatically show up for you, because we set the permissions when we add the channels. And so if you have the role for whatever game or whatever option, then that channel shows up for you.
Yeah. Oh, hold on. I was going to share this with you guys and I forgot, but I will, oh, sorry. I just showed your fucking email. Sorry about that. I will blur that out. I'll blur that out in the VOD. I was going to put that in Discord for you guys to see that. So you guys should be able to see that, hopefully, and you can go through this as well, because I've got links on all of these slides. A lot of these slides do have links, so you can just click this link and go straight there. If you can't find where something is, that'll make it a lot easier. The next thing is this voice activity role. I turned off the voice activity. I'm currently using voice activity just because I have to talk a lot right now, but you can select this role if you'd like to use voice activity. I turned off voice activity because we had issues with, some people coughing into the mic and things like that. So as long as you can keep that kind of background noise down, feel free to go ahead and select that role, and then you can use voice activity again. Game role selection. Again, this is in the Genesis Guild private game role selection. And again, this is hyperlinked, so you can go straight to it. This has changed a little bit, but any games you're interested in playing with the guild, or if you get Ashes Alpha 2 access, go ahead and select those in that channel, so we can kind of keep our numbers accurate with all that. And also, it will open up new channels that you will be able to see. Like if you select the Ashes role, you will see the Ashes channels, but please only select it if you are planning to play Ashes, and the same with Pax Dei. And the next thing is, I had a lot of issues when we were in Pax Dei with people coming up to me and wanting to be in the guild, and I didn't know who they were. So put in parentheses next to your name, your in-game name, if it's not the same. That way I can keep that sorted out. Introductions channel. Not a lot of people have posted introductions. Again, it's the very top of the Genesis Guild private there, very close to the top, and it's linked here. Feel free, it's optional, but feel free to introduce yourself if you have not. This is another thing. Like, I think a lot of people have muted the entire Discord, and so they never get any information we put out. So if you go to your notification settings, you can unmute at least the announcement channels. And that would help us so we can actually get information out to you. I try not to ping you guys too often, but I know I have been pinging you guys quite a bit. But you can go in here and make sure you're at least getting notifications for any new messages I put in there. Okay, so we did that one. If you're interested in an event, make sure you click interested so we know how many people are going to be showing up. Not a huge thing, but it just kind of helps us know who's going to be around. The leave of absence channel is something I added recently. If you're going to be away for an extended period of time, make sure you let us know, because we are going to be tracking. We are looking to be a 200-person guild roughly, and I want to make sure if you're going to be gone for an extended period of time, I don't accidentally remove you from the guild. Being a 200-person guild, I want to make sure we have 200 active people. And active doesn't have to mean 40 hours a week. It could mean 4 hours per week, but I just need people that are actually actively playing. Let me go through my notes here. I haven't been looking at my notes to make sure I am not missing anything here. Yeah, if you're not using voice activity, I use a foot switch. I know it's kind of nerdy, but it is handy. Like it is very handy for freeing up your hands and stuff. Obviously MMOs, there's a lot of keybinds, right? So let's see what else. Oh, here's another one I had a note for, and I forgot to tell you back on the event thing, but a lot of people keep asking me, like, when is the meeting? When is this? When is that? It's automatically converted to your time zone, like in the event. So, like, obviously it says 8 for me, but for some of you guys, it probably said a different time. Okay, that's all the general Discord stuff out of the way. Now we're on to some more kind of meat and bones of the guild. We're not a streamer guild. I know a lot of you came from my YouTube channel, but the reality is we're quite a bit more serious than most of those guilds. Like most of the streamer guilds, they're not super organized, and it's just meant for a way to have the streamer have things funneled to them. And this is a more serious guild. That a lot of the more serious guilds typically are not streamer guilds. And yes, I know I stream and make content and things like that, but I gave up. I am willing to give up some of that. I knew I would be giving up some of that to run a guild, to run a professional guild like we were running here, because I know it does take some time to do these kind of things. But that is also kind of the reason I am looking to have officers that have big roles in this guild. so they can take a lot of that away so I can still do those things. But it's going to take time. Right now I'm going to be running a lot of the stuff, and we've got Insta and Dawn and Polly and Eon taking on a lot of stuff as well. And we'll have more later, but for right now, I still have a pretty big, kind of workload within the guild. Luckily, we don't have a game right now, so that helps. But once the game is here, I'll be taking on a pretty big role. But over time, my goal is to become more of a CEO, I guess you would say, to where I'm kind of running things and not as involved in the day-to-day things. I'm kind of overrunning the higher end things, I guess you would say, and letting the officers kind of do their thing. We don't have a lot of rules. That does not mean we're not trying to be competitive, and we don't have big goals. And that doesn't mean we don't have any rules at all. But I've been in a lot of these sweaty, hardcore, competitive PvP guilds in these games like Arcade, and even in Guild Wars 2. Like, I was in a group, the guild was called Unlimited at the start of Guild Wars 2, and we were in an alliance called the Titan Alliance. And you can Google the Titan Alliance Guild Wars 2 2012, something like some kind of string like that, and you'll find that the Titan Alliance won the first 50 World versus World matchups in Guild Wars 2. We were dominant. But man, these guilds had a million rules, and I didn't feel like most of them were necessary. And guess what? Unlimited, I was an officer in Unlimited, and it kind of fell on its own sword. The best guild I've ever been in terms of competitiveness. I mean, obviously the World versus World in Guild Wars 2 is server versus server, and we were the top server in North America for 50 matchups in a row. And we didn't have to do all the things we did to get to that point. There was a lot of things that were done to get to that point that were unnecessary and ended up causing the guild to fall apart. And I've seen that time and time again, where you have a lot of unnecessary rules that take away the fun of the game. And I don't want to do that for people. And it's going to take time. We eventually want to compete with some of the long-established guilds. I was going to go in. Should I go show you guys? I'll show you guys. Hopefully nothing weird comes up in my, my search history here. But I know a lot of these guilds. Like, well, not but a lot of these guilds I've ran into before in previous games. Like Fist of the Empire. They were one that I believe was in the enemy. They might have been in Titan Alliance. I can't remember. But they started their guild around the Guild Wars 2 era. And they're a really, really competitive guild. Envious, obviously, they started 4 Ashes. And, they haven't really accomplished anything necessarily yet, but they're very organized and they have a lot of people. We're not, on their level. We're not on Fist of the Empire's level yet, but I think we can get there. It's just going to take time. Okay, so just another little anecdote here. The road to success is often littered with failures along the way. So, back in the day, I grew up on the Apple IIe when I was in school, and we used to, we were supposed to have like a typing class. And instead of typing, I would be playing, Oregon Trail. While the teacher wasn't looking, we'd pass a little, these big-ass floppy disks, or those like 6 1/4, I forget the size, but these big, huge things, we'd pass this around, shove that in there, you clank it down, it made this big, huge noise, like I said, it was reading it. And Oregon Trail was kind of a hard game. It's like a text-based game, and here's that big-ass disc, but like you would constantly die of fucking dysentery in this game, just nonstop. You're always dying of dysentery, just nonstop. And so Genesis will get dysentery. Like, unfortunately, we'll have situations, we'll have like a major like drama at some point. Like every guild has these things. And so you just have to be able to stick through those points. A lot of people quit at that point, and that's, the people that stick around after that, the guild will be much better after when we have those things. And I'm doing everything I can to eliminate people, from the guild. We've had, like I said, we've had to remove some people, and people that don't fit will get out of here, and that hopefully will prevent a lot of that stuff from happening. Let me read through here and the notes, make sure I didn't miss anything. Yeah, like I was in a guild. I joined a guild temporarily. Talking about not a lot of rules. I joined a guild temporarily to get Throne Liberty access last year when they had a test, and there was this guild that we joined called Focus. Several of us joined, and it had just ridiculous rules. You had to be in voice chat at all times if you're in the game. They were constantly begging people to boost the server, and you had to have your guild tag in front of your Discord name on every single server. All like nonsensical rules that just annoyed people and I don't think are necessary. So I don't want to have stupid rules. We'll have rules that make sense. Yeah, and on to like this thing, like almost everybody on the road to success has these kind of problems. But there are some outliers, you know, of people that just go right to the top without any issues, but that's not the normal case. Ashes of Creation and Pax Dei both have a big open world focus, and usually those type of games are a numbers game. Anybody that played Arcade, Lineage 2, or any similar Korean Eastern style MMO, unfortunately a lot of it comes down to numbers. And so, you know, our current plan is 100 to 150 in the hardcore guild and 50 to 100 in the casual guild for a total of 200, and we want to have very strong alliances because 200, quite simply, is not enough. Even if we have 200 active people and even if we are maximizing those people, which we plan to do, that may not be enough because there's going to be guilds much bigger than that. We might have to go higher, but that's the current plan. Recruiting has been excellent. I've kind of compared myself or this guild to other guilds. I have some spreadsheets and things like that where I track the growth of the discords of some of the other Ashes guilds, and we're doing better than most of them. That's not always a good thing. You can grow too fast. You can get the wrong people, but we do have a process that is weeding out, quite a few people. And I've been lax on recruiting a little bit, but we're going to start to get much more strict as we get closer to our numbers. These are all optional things, but helpful things you can do to support the guild. You can add the guild tag on the official discords, like the Ashes and the Pax Dei discords, so just like Genesis Rive. I think I did like capital G and then lowercase for the rest of this. Again, completely optional. I don't care if you do it or not, but I don't think it really helps, honestly, the guild that much. But if you want to do it, if some people have asked how we can help, well, that's one small way you could help. You can also make an account on the Ashes forums and go bump our forum post. And Polly, if you're interested in doing that, Polly can help you out with a forum signature template that I've given him. And he can give you the link to the forum post and all that. So guild activities until Pax Dei. Well, at this point, Pax Dei is going to be here very soon. In fact, I think they normally announce things on their kind of news channel on their Discord on Friday. So I kind of expect Friday we'll get the announcement. And then after that, we have early access of Pax Dei in Q2. And then Ashes, I don't know why I put Ashes. Ashes is not till Q3, but okay, yeah. So we have Pax Dei, and then we're going to have Ashes. And then really, I don't know what else to do in terms of guild activities, because I think that will probably be enough. We've been a little inactive at times. We started out pretty good with Pax Dei, and then SOD, we were very active there for a while, and then it got pretty light here for a while. We were playing GeoGuessr, and then we did play Enshrouded, and that was pretty fun. We played Nightingale recently, but we've been mostly kind of inactive recently, but I think it'll start to pick back up. I do have a topic of the week I've been doing every week in the guild forums, which you're welcome to participate in, or at least read that if you get time. And the monthly guild meeting is the first Wednesday of every month. So whatever the first Wednesday is in April will be the next guild meeting. I probably won't have near as much to talk about because I'm talking about everything this time, but the next meeting will be more about following up on some of the stuff, the questions that we have. I'm considering having like just an open discussion night in the public lobby that we schedule once a month as well. And we'll see. Maybe we'll try that this month and see how it goes after the Pax Dei testing is over. I'm open to other ideas, but at this point, we're close enough to Ashes and Pax Day that we should be good. I don't think we need to force any activities. And the problem is, like, everybody's doing different things, right? So it's hard to get everybody on the same page and wanting to do the same thing until the games that you guys joined, you know, are here. And the reality is, like, every guild that is in the same situation isn't that active. Like, every guild that is formed for Ashes isn't the most active right now. I would say we're more active than most of them. And I compare a little bit. I'm in some of those discords or the discords of the Ashes guilds, and a lot of them aren't that active. I'd say we're more active than most of them. Okay, now we're starting to get into a little bit here on like slide. What are we at? Slide 26 now. A little bit more info on the guild here. Casual and hardcore guild. This is the whole reasoning behind why I am doing this. There's no member cap in an alliance, only a maximum of 4 guilds. So our plan is to have 4 guilds of 30 to 50, because the maximum size for a guild that chooses all skill options will be between 30 and 50. So above 30 and 30 to 50, whatever they put that cap at, you will not get the extra perks that small guilds get that allow them to compete with larger guilds. And so the idea is, let's say they cap it at 50. We'll have 4 guilds of 50, 3 hardcore, 1 casual, all in one alliance to essentially create our guild, at large. This is kind of my little outline that I drew up of how it might work. Obviously, Alliance 1 is all Genesis. And then alliances that we have will have to all be external of the in-game alliance system is how I'm looking at doing it. We might find out that does not work. So we may have to change that. We might find that we need the in-game alliance system, and so we might have to just put all 200 in one guild. This is just a theory. This is what we're going to be testing in Alpha 2. The reality is, in Alpha 2, we've only got 40-some people for Alpha 2 so far, so we won't be going all in and separating out. We'll all be in one guild at the start of Alpha 2 until we have enough people to start separating out. That's the initial plan. Let's see here. Slide them out on 27. I didn't talk about it much, but we're planning to have a Team A, Team B, and Team C, and I think I get into that more in a slide down the road here. But Team A is our best players. Team B is kind of the middle of the road players, and Team C is our kind of initiates for the hardcore guild. And obviously the casual guild, there's none of that. It's just everybody in the casual guild's in the casual guild. Within Team A, and I think I have another slide here that we get into that more, but within Team A, we'll have some special teams as well. I'm going to get into more of that here in a little bit. But the idea behind breaking out based on skill level, the idea with that is to maximize our members. So if you put some really hardcore dudes, really sweaty dudes all together in a group that plays together routinely, they will maximize their effectiveness. If you have 7, the group size is 8 in Ashes, so if you have 7 people, but your healer in that group is a little bit lacking, and the rest of them are all really, really good, the bad healer kind of brings the whole group down, right? And you're not maximizing the rest of the 7 people. So the idea is to break out like that, but I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. I'm going to get into that more, I think, here in the future. We are going to be picky on who we ally with. Potential ally guilds are going to start as a friendly guild, and there'll be a trial period before we move them to the official alliance. I already have a kind of a list of guilds I've been talking to, and I intend to try to get some of these guilds on the same server as us, the ones that I think could be a good fit. And okay, here we go. This is where we get into the actual structure of the guilds a little bit more. So we have Genesis Hardcore 1, And for that, we'll have a hardcore elite Discord rank. These are the best 30 to 50 players in Genesis. And we'll get into how we're going to figure that out. At least in theory. Obviously, we don't know yet, right? But I'll try to get into how we're going to try to figure this out here in a bit. Hardcore 2 is going to be for hardcore members and veterans. In order to go to Hardcore 1, you'll probably have to get to Veteran within the Hardcore Guild 2 first, and then pass the challenges and stuff we have in place to get to Hardcore 1. Obviously, there's limited slots, right? So it could be difficult to get there if it's already full, but there will be attrition and things over time. And if you've proved to be better than anybody we have, or better than, number 30, we might have to bump number 30 and put you in there. Within Hardcore 1, we're going to have 8 players, and I called it SEAL Team 6, but you can just call it whatever you want, Team A or Team B. In the military, obviously, SEAL Team 6 is the number 1 SEAL team. Like, there's a bunch of different SEAL teams, but SEAL Team 6 is the cream of the crop. So that's my idea of the absolute 8 best players in Genesis, which we're going to determine through a lot of different factors. They will be together in a team. And you might be asking yourself, okay, well, how are you going to have 8 players online at the same time all the time? And they won't obviously be online at the same time all the time. Now, during sieges, the best 8 players in most cases probably will be around most of the time. But we're going to have alternates. So this is a 30-person guild. Basically, everyone in this guild is going to be an alternate for either Team A or Team B. And these special forces groups are going to be asked to do a lot of different things in the guild. Obviously, in sieges, these groups will be in their own group, in their own voice chat, and they will be wreaking havoc all over the siege. They will be capturing the objectives because these castles have objectives. The Alpha 1 castle had objectives. Lineage 2 castles had objectives. Throne of Liberty, there's objectives. Ashes will have like these objectives, these capture points. In the Alpha 1, the capture points will be the capture points gave you reduced respawn and increased the respawn of the enemy, so they're very valuable to capture those. And then in addition to that, once you've captured the points, you'll be running in and taking out the back line of like the main Zerg group that we're fighting as a main raid and working with the main raid. So that's in the sieges, but then also in day-to-day play, these teams will be instrumental as well. Like, say we have a caravan getting attacked, we'll call upon these guys to go wreak havoc on whoever attacked us. And, eventually we send these people out enough times to do these kind of things, and I think it should prevent people from wanting to mess with us if we've got a well-honed and team that's working together, right? Let me read through my notes here real quick. What? Oh, and here is, let's see. This is Rowing's, much more clean version of this. Now, he has 3 different groups. We might end up with 3 different groups, but then you won't have enough alternates, potentially. And so that's kind of my idea for just having 2, but we might eventually have 3. It's a lot cleaner version. He put in an idea of having some squads in Hardcore 2, which we might do at some point. Right now, we don't have that, but that could be a thing at some point. We have plenty of officer positions available. We have leaders for the 3 hardcore guilds and the casual guild that we're going to eventually be putting in place, that we're going to try to identify. We're going to have special forces leaders for those groups I was talking about. We'll have PvP siege leaders and PvP target callers, economic officers, raid leaders for PvE, alliance officers, leaders of each of the 8 archetypes, and leaders of the 22 professions. I have a forum post where I recently went over a lot of this stuff that you can see. I went over this a lot in detail, and this was part of this. Now this, I'm going to have to open this in another tab because it's pretty in detail here. But this is kind of a flow chart giving you guys kind of an idea of what I'm looking at doing. Obviously, we have me as the leader. We have Insta as the general, who's kind of second in command. And underneath that, we have a leader for Hardcore Guild A, B, C, and the Casual Guild. And as of right now, because we don't have a lot of officers yet, it'll be something like me for leading Guild A and Insta Guild B and Don C until we figure out other people that might do that. Or it could just stay that way. We'll see. And, it could be me leading B, Insta leading A. We don't, obviously it's just something like that, right? And then to break it out further, we have Outreach underneath Insta and myself, who are your recruiting officers and your alliance officers. We don't have a need really for alliance officers just yet because we don't have any alliances. I'm working on that. But until we play in a game with these people, we can't determine if they're going to be a good alliance member yet. And then the PvE section, Insta will be leading all the PvE at the start, which means he is also going to be the raid leader for PvE and the open world / dungeon leader. And in that post, go read that forum post, but I kind of went into pretty exhaustive detail. It's a pretty long post on what all these mean. But the PvE raid leader, that's pretty obvious. Like there's raid bosses in the open world, and you guys will obviously need somebody to lead that. And then the open world is more obviously your dungeons, which most of the dungeons are open world in Ashes. There are some that are instanced. And then I also included things like gathering in open world PvE. So they'll also interact with the gatherers within this, which I think there's like 4 or 5 gathering professions. And then PvP, I will be leading all that at the start. And obviously, we're going to have some siege raid leaders. We're going to have a caravan and open world PvP coordinator. And we're going to have special forces leaders. Siege raid leader, I think that's fairly obvious, right? The caravan open world PvP coordinator, fairly obvious that you're going to be handling everything in the open world, but the caravan is the biggest aspect of that. But this guy will be working pretty heavily with Don, who is our economic leader, who works with all the profession leaders, who works with the caravan leaders. And, even like the special forces leaders, like we're going to be getting the special forces to run the very high value caravans, right? That's kind of the idea behind having the special forces. They're not just for sieges. There's for a lot of different functions. And right now, obviously, Don is going to handle everything economy until we get some more people to help there. But I'm not in a hurry to make anyone an officer. I got to see you in action. I got to see what your strengths and weaknesses are before we can put anybody in there. I also have this concept of junior officers, and I know Bob had mentioned that, it looks like we're going to have a lot of leaders, and I get that. It does look like on paper we will have a lot, but the profession leaders, I don't consider that an officer technically. They will not have mod rights in the Discord. Siege target colors, not really an officer position. That's just somebody that's really good at picking out applicable targets in sieges, which people that do that well, it's a lot more important than it sounds like on paper. And then I want to have leaders for each of the 8 primary archetypes. And the reason I want to have that is I want people that can help others that need help. Because like I said, if you're a good human, we can work with you. We can make you better. And we can get you, if you want to get to Guild A, we can get you there. But you got to be willing to put in the effort. And that's where these class leaders come into play. Now, this is a fairly, even though it's a junior officer position, the class leader is kind of a big deal because there are obviously each of the 8 primary archetypes have 8 subclasses. And there's PvE builds, there's PvP builds, and there's a high degree of customizability. So if you are the class leader for tank, which I know is an archetype and I call it a class leader, but you guys get the idea. you'll have to know a lot. You have to know all the classes, and obviously you probably can't play all those classes, but there's concepts of being able to watch videos and watching like the discords. If Ashes is successful, World of Warcraft had a discord for like warlocks, for instance, and that is where like the cutting edge stuff is happening in terms of builds and things like that. So utilizing any resources that the community creates, could be websites, Reddit, YouTube, Discord, to be as knowledgeable as you possibly can about a tank. And if you show that you're that guy, you will be the tank class leader. And I know it's a junior officer role, but it's an important role. Now, the profession leaders, the concept behind that is if you're, say, lumber milling, we will be funneling you via the caravans, and Dawn will be funding you materials to get you leveled up first before all the other people that have chosen that profession in the guild. And then we'll also be funneling you any materials you need to be making us, processing us the things we need. And we'll be prioritizing the professions, obviously, of these 22 that we deem to be the most important in terms of getting the guild geared out. So we'll be funneling from our gatherers to our processors to our crafters. There's going to be a primary of each that we're going to get leveled up first. And that is to get the guild fast-tracked into good gear as soon as possible, since crafters make, the best gear in the game. I have not been reading chat, but I will go through and read chat here in a little bit.
I've been taking care of the questions.
Okay, perfect.
So you're good there.
Perfect. I notice it's a pretty active chat, but that's good. It's good to see. And then I also have this here, and this is kind of a breakdown of all the officer positions. And, a lot of these are junior officer positions. I've added all the positions up and kind of did a total. And the total officer roles is roughly 10% of the guild, at 200. And with a game as complicated as Ashes, I don't think that's too many. And keep in mind, it's going to be less than 10% the reality, because some people are going to wear multiple hats. And I also made that clear in that post recently where I went over all this. But these are all the positions as of now that I have thought out. We're going to have, another one that's not on here is a Pax Dei guild leader. We're looking at someone in particular for that as well. It is on here actually, because obviously Ashes is the number 1 game, but Pax Dei is a very close number 2, and we want to obviously treat it with the same level, that we're treating Ashes. And so we'll have somebody there. But a lot of these roles are kind of specific to Ashes. We'll have more roles for Pax Dei, as we learn more about it. In the last alpha, we had kind of a lead for the different crafting professions, kind of what we're doing with Ashes, and we'll continue to do that in Pax Dei. That worked pretty good. And again, it's linked there if you want the link to it. So here's that post where I clarified everything if you need the link to that. Let's see, reading through my notes here real quick. Yeah, like in some less complex MMOs, a GM and 2 to 3 officers is fine. Ashes is so complex. It's really like they're making 5 MMOs at once with how complex this game is. I really think we need more than just 2 to 3 officers, so that's what we're going for. If it doesn't work, we'll change it. But that's what we're going to try for right now at the beginning. Okay. Why casual and hardcore? I mean, nobody's really asked that question, but I could see why somebody would have that question, right? Number one, like numbers, obviously, but I want to support multiple play styles. So I don't know if Anton is here, but like looking at, yeah, Anton's here. Like, somebody like Anton, he's been, following my YouTube channel since the very beginning. He's very old. Anton is our oldest member. I'm pretty sure. I believe he's like 72, if I remember right. And he obviously, wants to play a lot more casually. He's got, I believe, issues with like carpal tunnel and things like that. To where he can't be sweaty like us, obviously. And he hasn't really played an MMO since EverQuest, if I remember right. So I want to support Anton and being able to play casually and still enjoy the game. And casual players can get a lot from us in the form of protection. And so they want to be here for that. And they're very likely to get it geared up faster. Now, full disclosure, obviously casual players will not get geared up first. We're going to get the gear to our top players first because they can maximize it, right? They're the best players that can maximize that gear. But I need the hardcore players to stick around and help gear up the casuals once they have the gear. Hardcores want to be here because of extreme organization, competitive without toxicity. We have a plan to identify our most skilled players and maximize their effectiveness. We're going to get into that shortly. All I need from the casual guild, be available when we need numbers and just have fun. If you want to just be a pirate, if you want to just like pick flowers all day, like go ahead and do it, man. Like I'm all for it. And we'll still have a good time with you guys. And we'll still, just because we're breaking out in these different categories doesn't mean like casual and hardcore players can't play together and we can't have fun together. We still want to do that. Hardcore guild, I just need you to stick around and help get the casual geared up, casual guild geared up, and provide protection for the casual guild. I already said that, but you want to move from casual to hardcore. Just become an officer, and you'll probably start out as an initiate starting in April. We're going to start using the hardcore initiate role quite a bit more, I think, here going forward during recruiting. Kind of a benefit of joining early was that most of you did not have to become an initiate. In fact, nobody is right now. But I will be a little bit pickier going forward. Not that I won't let people in, but that I won't give them full member per se, right off the bat if they don't have the credentials, like in their application, linking like a WoW armory or linking a video of something they did in a previous guild. Like I could link my guild Titan Alliance stuff if I was applying, from Unlimited Guild, the stuff we did in that guild, and some of the other guilds I've been in. Some people ask, are we going to be a gaming community? We're going to support like a ton of different games, and that's not the plan. Let me read through everything. Make sure I didn't miss anything. Okay, we're good. Yeah, of course, spreadsheets. We're going to have a lot of spreadsheets. We have a class and arson sheet for Ashes. Probably a lot of you have seen this, but I don't care if you put anything in here yet. This spreadsheet is editable by anyone, so you can kind of mess things up. But there's a version history that I can go, like anybody messes things up and just go back to a previous version. It's not that big a deal. But this spreadsheet can be edited by anyone. So you can put in your archetype of what you want to be. And what this, kind of allows us to do is give us an idea of who's going to be what. I put tank here. I'll be honest, I have no idea what I want to be yet. I'm leaning towards potentially fighter, actually, to be honest. But we'll see fighter this week, so that maybe that'll. But my intention is to play quite a few different classes in Alpha 2 and figure it out from there. And that's what I'd hope a lot of you guys want to do, is kind of find a class that suits you. Don't worry about, the guild needs more tanks, the guild needs more healers. Of course, in PvP, you can never have enough healers. Like, I've never been in a situation in PvP where I was like, fuck, we don't have enough, or we have too many healers. Like, tanks, it's going to depend, obviously, on, how good the tank is in PvP. A Ryukrat's going to be a healer? Hell yeah, buddy. Yeah, dude, we can never have enough healers in PvP. And I love that we have a lot of healers. Swal, I will mention that there is an alt section here, so you could put Swal alt over here if you'd like. And this is just for mains. And then also we have this tab here for your profession choices. And again, I don't expect anybody to know what they want to be yet. I'm leaning towards processing because as the guild leader, I might be an owner of a freehold, hopefully, and that's where the best processing is. But Dawn obviously could be our freehold guide. I've seen Dawn in action, and I think Dawn would be a badass on the freeholds and would be a badass processor. So, but we need more than one processor as well. And obviously we need, one for each of the processing professions, somebody to be a main there. So that's that. I don't expect anybody to know what the fuck they want to do yet. Like, I get that. This spreadsheet I put a kind of a ridiculous amount of time into, and I'll be honest, I don't know exactly where I put this. The Ashes forum. So if you go to the Ashes forum, there's a lot of different things in here. It's this one, but this is like for us to like gather info during Alpha 2. How much of this will be useful? I don't know yet. Some of this could not be useful at all, but this is just dump any information you want in here. If you have a suggestion for a tab, you can put it here. And again, this spreadsheet can be edited by anyone. This Reverlens XY, if they have an XY in the game like Alpha 1 had, we'll use that for coordinates. If not, I have this set up that we'll use for coordinates. We're going to have optimal leveling routes. We'll have a primary and alternative 2 and 3. And because the reason you have alternative leveling routes is because once everybody catches on to that, the alternative might actually be better. Important enemies, any enemy that you think is somewhat important, like raid bosses, or they drop certain things, you can put this here, what they drop, things like that. Any important quests that you think about. And obviously, you don't have to put every single quest here, but anything that might be an important kind of quest that gives a really good reward or gives a good gold reward, that kind of thing would be useful to have on here. Story arcs, like anything useful in the story arcs, that you could put that there. Will any of this be useful? The reality is all of this will eventually be on the wiki. So how much of this we actually have to do, who knows? We may not have to put a lot of this in here. And obviously, like casual guild members, that there are people that do not want the game spoiled for them, and I get that. So they, if you don't want to participate or even see this, that is understandable. Any interesting dynamic events you could put there. Any interesting gathering items. I've put a lot of them in already that we've seen that are on the wiki. How much of this is useful and how much of this will we actually have to do? I don't know. I got bored and I did it because I do these things, I guess. Processing items, same story. Processing fuel. Obviously, there's fuel for processing. So we could use this to determine like the best fuel, to gold value. Like maybe we could put if we know the gold value, we could find like, oh, this is 10 fuel and it's very cheap, that kind of thing. Let's see, crafting items. This, could be useful, like any like very useful crafts and, how to get them and all these things, the components. Armor, kind of same thing, like where we can get the armor. I don't expect us to put every single armor piece in here. Just like stuff, and I put stuff in here that just because it's in the wiki, right? And just as an example. But like important like armor and where to get it, you can put it in this tab. Same with jewelry. We haven't seen any jewelry yet in the game. Weapons, we've seen a few. Weapon DPS testing, what this is a way to test weapons for damage. So like the crystallized blood sword, let's say the mob had a 1,000 health and it took 30 seconds to kill, well, then obviously that's your DPS, right? Because there's not DPS meters per se in Ashes, but this is a rudimentary way we could figure out, which weapons do the most damage. Caravan components, any caravan components we find besides the ones they've already shown, we could put in there. Glint commodities. Anybody that played Arcade will know that there is a trade back spreadsheet for trade packs that showed you your best like gold value. And so that's what this is. So this would be a methodology for figuring out where the best like gold bang for a buck in terms of gold would be. And it, just like in Arcade, it's not necessarily about what is the highest value, because the highest value is going to be the furthest away, right? It's about what's the best value, and we have the best chance of getting there without getting our caravan destroyed. That's what we'll use this for. But keep in mind, with glint commodities, the more that are turned in a node, the value does go down. So we'll have to try to figure out some way to know what the default value is. And maybe at the start of Alpha 2, they won't have like that built into the game yet, where we will know exactly what the, how much it goes down based on what's been turned in. Maybe it'll just always be the default until they put that in. Node commodities. Again, at node commodities, we haven't seen much with that yet, but there is node commodities that can be traded from node to node. I don't know if that'll be useful or not. I think this tab will be useful, ground mount speed testing. So like, there was a video, this video here. This guy did a video.
Mounts and ash.
Pretty huge channel, but he did speed testing on the mounts in Alpha 1. I think that'll be quite useful to know which mounts are the fastest in Alpha 2. So this could be quite a useful tab. Same with the aquatic mounts and the flying mounts. And I probably should put gliding mounts in here too. Like gliding mounts in Arcades were gigantic, very important. And so finding the fastest gliding mount, and we could just, rename this gliding mount as far as that goes, because flying mounts aren't a thing that a lot of people get, right, in Ashes. So that's that ridiculous spreadsheet that I made, and I know it's kind of excessive, and we don't even know if any of that will be useful, but I just want to be prepared. This is the game. Ashes is the game that I'm hanging my hat on, and in doing so, I'm wanting to be very prepared. Now, I think a few people may have had the question, how are we determining who the best players are? There's no DPS meters in Ashes, right? But there is things you can do. I've been in games that didn't have DPS meters, and we did something similar to this. I called this the Gauntlet Spreadsheet. I don't know what we'll call it. But again, I think it's in the Ashes forums again. And it rules, whatever. DPS, like win 4 out of 7. These are all PvP challenges, B through H here. Win 4 out of 7 duels versus the same class, whatever. Like we'll figure out what the average is here. We'll figure out what a good number is here. Survive 30 seconds versus 2 DPS, or must stay within duel area. No counter classes. Things like that. You guys can read through all this, and you guys have the link to this, but we have PvE challenges and PvP challenges. Beat a very hard mob solo in under 60 seconds, and we'll put the time here, and we'll figure out a total score, and kind of what we're going to figure out who has the best scores on this. Now, will this be the only determining factor on who gets into the top groups in Genesis? No. Because obviously I've seen people that are highly skilled that are assholes and, can't communicate with people. So there's more to it than just that. But this is a way without DPS meters. And the reality is DPS meters will eventually exist. Guild Wars 2 does not have DPS meters built in or add-ons allowed. But there are DPS meters in Guild Wars 2. Final Fantasy 14 does not have DPS meters built in or allowed. They don't have an API for it, but people have DPS meters in Final Fantasy 14. So eventually we may not have to do a lot of this stuff. We'll just use the DPS meters as long as it's not against terms of service and could get us in trouble, things like that. But so, skill is not the only thing. The ability to effectively communicate, like, can you get your thoughts across in voice chat in a high pressure situation quickly without clogging up voice chat? Like that's a skill that some skilled players, they might be very mechanically skilled, but they're not good at the voice chat part of it. Or, they overreact to things and things like that. I have a guild roster spreadsheet. This was requested. We have that. So you can look at that on your own time. But yeah, a lot of information on there on who all is in the guild with you guys. We can help you guys improve. We have class leaders, PvP and PvE leaders, artisan profession leaders. And we don't yet, but we will eventually have all these things. And so even the artisan professions, you want to get better at, if you want to get better at mining, just go mine more. But if you want to get better at armor smithing, we'll have some armor smiths that can help you there. I've made some videos on large scale PvP tactics. I had a video called Ashes of Creation Large Scale PvP General Tactics and Theory Crafting, kind of a long video title, but just talked about a lot of little things that you can do in those large scale PvP situations to improve. It's not just like spamming your rotation. And then I did one recently, everything in no Ashes combat. Like there's a lot of little things that you can do. Things like improving our group composition, target calling and focus. Like you will be amazed at how much like being able to focus a target effectively as a group matters in large scale situations, and how much you can improve at doing that more effectively. Positioning matters a massive amount in large scale PvP. If you're a healer and you get out of position and a tank pulls you into the enemy group, well, you're going to die. So positioning is huge. Rotation between objectives. Our special forces teams, I don't like people just sitting on a point. You go capture the point and then you go do something else. Ashes has a huge draw distance, so you can look at the point while you're doing other things from a long ways away to see if somebody's going to capture it. And the captures in Alpha 1 it took a very long time. So, always be going and doing something important. Don't just sit and defend things. Crowd control rotation. So like this is hard in large scale PvP, but like not hitting diminishing returns. This will be more useful for the smaller groups, right? So like, hey, you can call out a CC you're about to use, like a stun, right? And then stuns typically have really quick DRs to where, if a bunch of people spam stun all at once, the third person stun does nothing because of DR. So properly rotating your CC is huge, like in these smaller scale groups. And then we're going to have like stealth ambush squads, things like that. Our special forces group might do this, or this might be another group we add. There's obviously stealth in the game, and there's like if you pick an assassin or rogue, secondary, you could have a cleric with stealth. We don't know how that works yet, but we could imagine we have a full group of tank, cleric, and DPS that all have rogue secondaries, and they can all stealth. Like imagine the havoc that kind of group could wreak on the battlefield. Things like fake casting, like that's more like a small scale, like arena thing. But anybody that did arena PvP and WoW at like a high level, if you're a healer and you don't fake cast, like you will not get very high in the ladder. Peeling for healers, like this is like a very basic thing. Anybody that's done PvP knows about this, but like, I've done a lot of healing in PvP, and not getting melee or range to peel for you is very annoying in PvP. So that is simply just stunning or killing anybody that's attacking our healers. And then like healers, yeah, healing can be boring. Healing, it to me is one of the more boring roles, but adding damage or CC when the raid is topped off is kind of how healers can take things to the next level. And like, again, like WoW Arena, to play it at a high level, healers have to be doing these things. And again, this is smaller scale stuff, but our server choice is likely to be US East. Well, I wouldn't say likely. It is going to be US East. And there's this concept that Envious has floated called Server 1, where that's going to be the competitive server. I don't know if we'll go on that server, to be honest, because last time that server was the Asmongold server as well, and it was just kind of overpopulated. And honestly, I don't know if I want to be on Envious's server because reasons that I won't get into since I'm going to be putting this on YouTube. But there's an Ashes role selection channel. So again, you can select this. And again, this is kind of in addition to the spreadsheet. But what this is you can select, if you decide you want to be an alchemist, you can go down here and select alchemy as your thing. And what this will allow us to do is I can just go at, Ashes alchemy, right? And obviously the leader as well is there. And so like, if I need something from an alchemist, that just makes it simpler, right? To know who is our alchemist, and I can ping them in the Discord. And a lot of that stuff might be built into the game too, so maybe this is all redundant, but it's just over-preparedness is really what this is. So Pax Dei, we got a test coming up in Q1. It's not the main game, but I intend to support it as the main game. And like I said, we're looking for a main leader of the Pax Dei chapter for when we're kind of all doing our Ashes thing in Q3. Somebody to kind of watch over things. We have some people, one person that we're looking at for that. And again, there's a role selection. I won't show you guys this, but you guys can click this link here. I think it's linked. If not, you'll find it in the Ashes or the Pax Dei channel. But the different roles that we currently have for Pax Dei, like jewel cutting, tailoring, so on and so forth, you can go select those. The friend code is arrive that you can put in and get a little bit better chance to get into the alpha. It worked last time. Throne and Liberty, we're not supporting anymore. Okay, our current officers are Insta. It's going to be our general and PvE lead officer. Dawn is going to be the economic lead officer. Polly is a recruiting officer, and Eon's a recruiting officer. These are our current officers. And at this time, Insta, if you want to come up and get all these guys up here and let you guys introduce yourself, and I'll just kind of talk about your previous MMO history if you'd like, or what your plans are for the guild, what your plans are for Ashes. However you want to take it, just kind of introduce yourself to the guild real quick.
I don't think that there's very few people in here that I haven't actually talked to. So I'd say most of you probably know me. And in terms of gaming history, I have a plethora of gaming history. In terms of actual time frame, I've gamed longer than somebody like Rowing's been alive. So I have way too many hours invested into gaming. I do work from home, so you guys will probably see me in chat quite frequently. Everybody's welcome to join the public chat and talk. You'll see quite a few of us in there on the daily almost. Not always talking about Ashes or preparing for Ashes or various other things. Sometimes we're just talking about random stuff, everyday stuff. But you guys can give me any questions you want at any point in time, and I'll answer it to the best of my ability. As Rive said, I'm here as backup, mostly to try and cover anything that Rive needs. Rive is a busy man, and so I try to do the best I can at helping. In terms of anything else, if anybody wants to know anything, you can ask questions. I'll be glad to answer them. But I'll go ahead and let. I don't know if Dawn.
Can you pull Dawn up here?
Yeah, let me.
I invited him to speak, but he might be AFK currently. Polly, if you want to go ahead and go and kind of introduce yourself real quick.
Hello, everybody. I'll be the recruiting officer. I've spoken with most of you like Insta, either during interview or just in passing. I try to be the first point of contact for anybody that comes into the server, so you often see me in public chat more often than not. So other than that, I'm just here to, facilitate a smooth entry for anybody that's coming into the guild or that is interested, and just try to be a welcoming face for the community here. Other than that, my experience in MMOs is pretty lackluster, as it's mostly just been Final Fantasy XIV and maybe a couple other one-off ones like WoW or something that I played intermittently or for short periods of time. But a lot of my experience comes from competitive, like first-person shooter and like battle royales and things like that, or hardcore survival games. So that's kind of where my experience and tactics will lie. But if anybody has any questions about leadership potentials or just guild structure, any concerns whatsoever as far as like interpersonal relationships within the guild, I can definitely be a person that you guys can come to for that. Otherwise, I'm, pretty relaxed. And then I'll go ahead and leave it to Eon to introduce himself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Eon. I've played a lot of games for a long period of time. Started out with CS beta, and I had about a 7-man guild. I guess you can call it a squad, and we took it pretty far. We got invited to back then it was CPL, but it's changed its name to something bigger, more flashy now. But that was in Texas, and that was one of that big, massive tournament. The group decided on its own that we weren't going to take that route because we were young, really young. So we moved on. I moved around the world, seeing a lot of things. Just like Polly, if you have any questions, you're more than free to ask me. My MMO experience comes from New World. I played a lot of that, and so I don't know if it's going to translate well, but I can tell you now, sieges, they don't go always as planned, and you're going to have people that are going to complain. So it's, if you get it heated up, please come talk to me or Polly or somebody. Don't just start blowing up on screen. It's not going to help anybody. And we'll all be here to help. As you can see, Rive's got it all set up that we're going to have roles for everything. So I'll pass it back to him.
Hey,
Okay.
so Rive, one of the primary questions that I wasn't able to directly answer was associated to our testing for the elite teams or officer roles. And Roar had that question. He does have the aspect up to speak. If that's okay, I'll let him in to speak.
Yeah. Bring him on up here. Yeah. If Don comes back, we'll have him as well.
It looks like Roar's got a question as well. Oh,
there you go, Roar.
Hi, guys.
Hey, Roar.
I haven't really spoken to a lot of you. I know Rive pretty well. I met him through content creation. I think I was one of the first ones to join up with the guild here, but I know I don't really spend a lot of time here, so I don't really know any of you guys. And all I really know about the guild so far is what Rive has shared with me. I do have a pretty solid group of people from my own community that I'm hanging out with, so I'm just kind of biding time until, Ashes launches. And I can really jump in here with you guys. But a couple of questions, especially about, it's not so much about the who's going to be on alpha team or whatever you're calling it, but more likely or more in line of my question is I saw, how you're going to determine with duels and DPS meters and such. But I guess my question is, who determined those players to be determining the best players? Like, what are you guys using to determine that your leadership, your gameplay, your skills are strong enough to decide if we're good enough to be on a team?
Well, that's a good question. I mean,
I know that
yeah.
I know you guys have been gaming together a little bit on various other games, but
Yeah.
a lot of that stuff doesn't really translate into MMOs very well, and we really don't have any gameplay yet to kind of base that off of.
That's a good question. I mean, I can show you all kinds of gameplay from previous MMOs I've
No, that's fine.
But it's some of it. I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and say I will be like the best player in the guild by any means, and be an authority in terms of being able to say I know 100% what the best player would look like. Part of that's going to be leaning on people that we identify, early on that might be some of the better players, and leaning on their opinions on that as well. But also, it's also going to be like, hey, like people that play well together, obviously is a big determining factor as well. So, I mean, it's hard because there's no DPS meters. It's hard. And DPS isn't the only thing. Like, obviously, even in PvE, like, we need people that interrupt, and things like that. And, like in WoW, you have interrupts like on the meters and stuff. It shows all that shit, right? Like in healing per second and everything is there. And without all that data, it's a little bit harder. But that's why we do have the idea of the Gauntlet Spreadsheet, which is a kind of a management nightmare. And it's not something I want to do necessarily, because it could be a lot of work for the officers to put everybody through this challenge. And the idea of it is also that, is it always going to be 100% fair? Like, are we always fighting the exact same mobs in PvE? Like, are we going to have a pack of mobs that just respawns like really quick that we can just have people fight over and over again? Like, a really big pull kind of is my idea for the PvE challenge. Like, we have a big pack of mobs that we pull that's kind of a big challenge for an 8-man group. And so the healer in that group has to keep everybody alive. But also, if the healer's with some players that aren't as good, how is that fair to them? You know, it's not an easy answer to say, like,
No, it's not.
you know, and it's not something that I'll determine just based off like some, you know, testing regimen that we put in place, because that's not perfect.
Yeah.
But it's, you know, it's gonna be playing with the person quite a bit, and determining, you know, over time who might be a fit for that. It's not something that I will like instantly do. Like on day one, we're not going to be putting these people in places to be like the top of the top positions. It's going to take time to iron all that out, I think.
Yeah, and you know, and it's not that I'm trying to, you know, discredit anybody's, you know, gaming experience or skills, but I'm pretty sure I can speak for everyone when I say we've all been in that guild where the guy calling the shots is the worst player on the team and you just can't stand it, and we kind of just go from there.
Yeah. So
Well, I can say I
oh,
was the top DPS in our SOD raid, but I can also say that's not really saying that much.
Well, I mean,
Uh,
it's really easy to, like I said, you know, it's really easy for anybody who's spent any real time in World of Warcraft, you know, retail or recently other classic, and I mean like put forth an effort, didn't just, you know, casually level and quit, but like really tried to achieve something. Like you can very easily just jump on Warcraft logs and we can see what kind of player you are almost immediately. Where obviously Ashes isn't going to have that extent of data, but it's, you know,
yeah.
it goes a lot further than DPS. You know, there's using consumables at the right time. There's standing in bad. There's, you know, holding on to DPS cooldowns. You know, if this
Yeah.
ability is your main ability in rotation, how often are you pressing that button? That kind of stuff. So there's a lot that really goes into that.
Yeah, and then I mean, WoW rating is by far the hardest in the genre, and I don't expect Ashes to be near as hard in that regard. So, you know,
Then I have
yeah, go ahead.
one more question, if
Yep.
if we're okay with that.
Yep, go ahead.
This is for Insta, as the PvE leader, what kind of PvE experience do you have to bring to that table? Since like I said, I've never met you, so you might have
sure.
already
Yeah.
explained this
Pick a
to me, but
game. Pick a game.
I mean,
I think that's probably the easiest way. I have probably somewhere in the range of 6,000 hours in World of Warcraft. I go all the way back to Shadowbane for PvP references. It's almost any game you would want to talk about that's on the top 20. I probably played multiple hours in that. Excluding New World, I played it for 25 hours and I couldn't get past it. I
well,
couldn't deal with it.
I guess
But
more specifically, you know, in terms of difficult PvE content.
okay,
So
so
let me just
difficult.
speak
Yeah.
to
I mean,
let me
it'll
speak to
be.
World
I'll
of
have to go
Warcraft then.
way back in World of Warcraft, right? One of my guilds was one of the first guilds to clear Molten Core in Classic WoW when it was released, right? I mean, I can give you whatever you want, right?
I
But
mean, do
you
you
won't.
have
Nothing.
anything more recent,
Oof,
like past 5 expansions of World of Warcraft that we can relate to,
oh
or
yeah.
like,
No, I didn't play late expansions of World of Warcraft. It got outside of it, right? So, recent experience that's gonna be relative for what you're asking. Not that's gonna benefit your answer.
okay,
Not
I
that
can,
not that's gonna benefit your answer in this term, right? Because you haven't played with me. So I think you
right,
need to
yeah,
play with me to validate it, right? And that's gonna be the best way to do it.
I
gotcha.
can vouch for Insta. I had him lead raids in our SOD, and you know, obviously the SOD raid is not as hard as retail, but again, we're not looking to be mythic raiders, because that's not a thing in Ashes. So the level of rating is nowhere near mythic level rating in Ashes. I would be shocked.
Well,
if it
I'm
was.
not. Yeah, I'm not looking for our team, but obviously there needs to be a bit more skill for PvE. You know, let's say another guild is pushing you, and you know your boss is at
Well, I think that
30%, right?
so I think if this is actually going to address a couple items on your question list, I think you may have experience in situations where your guild leaders are the ones that are determining answers and leading you guys in every scenario. Understand that the guild leadership that's in place right now has the capability and the knowledge and ability to know that they may not be the best in every scenario, and will appoint the people that are the best for that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not.
So
I'm
I
not
have
gonna
no
sit here and-
problem.
Look. I don't mythic raid. I don't touch any of that. I don't raid much. I'm a PvPer. Like mostly, I've mostly have stuck to PvP in most MMOs that I've done. So I'm not. I'm looking for people to do that. Like I'm like Rorai. If you want to step up, like I'm looking for a raid leader.
Oh, we've already had that. You and I have
Yeah.
had that conversation. I raid leaded for
Yeah, and I mean,
way too many years, and I don't think I can stand it anymore. But
it could be a
you know,
scenario where
I'm more than happy to help out, but
Yeah.
it's just you know.
I mean, it could be a scenario where if you've led a lot of mythic raids, then we might not have people that have that level of experience. At least at this point, I don't have anybody that's applied for officer that's been running mythic raids like in every expansion of WoW. You know, I don't have anybody yet. So.
I just mainly, I just want to know that, you know, in the heat of the moment when the shit hits the fan, you know, your guys are going to be able to put us. I just want to kill things. Just point me in a direction and tell me to do it, and I can do it. So I just want to know that there's going to be people in charge, you know, especially in a game like Ashes with the stakes as high as they are, to be able to point me in the right direction when it needs to happen. So.
Yeah, I mean,
I think they're valid questions.
And I trust
right?
and I trust your leadership as well. You know,
Yeah.
like I said, like you guys all said, you've all been getting. I mean, I've been at MMO since Ultima Online, so I go all the way back as well, and I've seen everything, done everything, and I still do it today. Like I still play MMOs now. Like everybody hates WoW, I still play WoW. I push for Keystone Master and 3,000 rating and IO, and we mythic raid every week. So it's, you know, I'm still in it, and it's just like I said, we've all had really bad guild leadership. And like I said, I don't know you guys, so I thought this would be the right time to ask questions. So I'm just here to get to know everybody. I'm not trying to put a stick up anybody's ass. I know I can be kind of sound like a douche, but that's not my intention. So.
No, we're not going to take offense to it, right? That's the thing. And like I said, you haven't been around to be able to get to meet us. I think they're valid questions for anybody that has the time invested, at least with gaming with us. Know exactly what I just said, right?
Yeah.
We're not your typical guild leaders that are going to demand a whole bunch of BS out of you guys, or a bunch of hours or anything like that. We have real lives, and real life is always going to take a priority. And we also are very, very capable of saying, okay, so Roar, you've proven yourself to be capable in this scenario. If you want to take this lead, take it. You know, just like you saw me comment out in the chat where I will be calling out people to do PvE leadership in different roles in different sectors because I want to see their capabilities, right? And that'll be an option for anybody that wants to step up and take on that role. But expect that I probably will lead the first initial ones because I'm going to be the one out there doing the hours to figure out the concepts of what each raid is going to take, or open world boss, or whatever it may be.
Perfect. Well, that's really all I had. It was a pleasure meeting everybody.
Great question, Roland.
Definitely
Thank
a really good question. Thank you.
Dawn is here to introduce himself as well, Rev.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Thank you,
Dawn.
Roar. We do appreciate the questions.
Just a quick note there before I introduce myself. You also got to remember, as I think was basically stated at the beginning of everything here, is like we're building systems for a game that doesn't exist yet. So, like that, the Gauntlet might change in a big way, so that we won't have to worry about what's on that list there. So, that's all I want to say is like there's more to it than just those things that Rive has in the Gauntlet. We're going to be paying attention to other stuff, whether it's, you know, as was stated, like interrupt rotation, following orders. Like that's definitely something in the PvP side of things that, you know, you're going to want to have people in the top tier guild that are going to be focused on following, because that's the best thing that has happened, or in my gaming experience, is like if people are following orders, things seem to go a hell of a lot smooth. You don't want one team that's just doing their own thing and not participating in part of the team.
Yep.
As
said, Don. Yep.
As to me, I've been gaming. My first MMOs was WoW back in the day. I've played a lot of MMOs over the years. Some serious, some not. Right now, I'm going to be the economic officer for the guild. People that have seen or played with us played with me in Pax Dei know what I'm about. So, but my main focus, and it all depends on the game as well, because Guild Bank in, say, Ashes is going to be totally different to the organizational skills that I'm going to have to use and develop in Pax Dei, for example. And it is a group effort. It's just I'm basically herding cats. So I don't think there's anything else really on my end I need to say, but I'm just looking forward to getting to play with all yous in the various games.
Thank you, Don. Jinx, you ready?
Yeah, for sure. Hi, guys. I'm Jinx. I'll just take this brief moment to quickly introduce myself before I lead into my question. Joined up very recently. We've been having a lot of fun. We did Season of Discovery. We did the first go at Pax Day, and I did see firsthand the leadership team in action, and I thought it was very well balanced. And the people that are in the roles that we saw, they all deserve to be where they are. Exactly, Don, very great management. Polly, really good personable skills. And of course, the officers we saw in action in Season of Discovery. So going into Ashes, I know hands down we're going to have a really good go at it. But anyway, my question basically was from Season of Discovery and Pax Day. I noticed when we jumped in initially, it was kind of a little bit of a, I don't want to say unorganized, and it's to no fault of anything, but it was just kind of a moment of being lost. And I'm sure I wasn't the only one to experience this. It was kind of like, where is everybody? And then you join up and then you ask them a million questions, and not to bog down the whole guild or the leadership team. Is there a system that we maybe could put into place that maybe gets people on a quick fast track into the current state of the guild without having to just be invited into a group and ask a million questions that, say, 12 people have already had to ask? I'm not sure if I communicated that very well, but I'll let you guys take it from there.
As far as you talking about like Discord in terms of like what I just went over all the things, are you talking about like a game specifically?
Yeah, so jumping into Ashes, I'm sure as soon as the game launches, like everybody's going to be, firing in, and there's going to be a whole bunch of questions. It might not be at the same time. You might have people joining on day one. You might have some people joining at day three, following their work schedules or, time commitments. And I even remember PAX Day, I was one of the later people to join because of the server issues and caps and stuff like that. So on day three, it was kind of like and I felt bad because I had to ask everybody a million questions because everybody had already kind of found where the base was. They'd already understood the basic mechanics of the system. And then there I was, not necessarily dragging the team down, but maybe it would have been a good idea to have some kind of formatted system where players that are coming in and they're like, okay, I'm ready. I want to be a part of the guild. Maybe it's day two, but how can I quickly get in and find out where the guild's at and what it's doing rather than just, joining a group and asking everybody a million questions.
Yeah,
like
so I think, are you
FAQ type of thing, maybe like Viggs is saying. We could yeah, that's something we could look at. Well, you go ahead, Insta.
Yeah, so I guess the question, you have a two-part question as far as I read it. Question number one is going to be guild structure, leadership, etc. Any questions about the guild? So we can build out that now for a FAQ, and we can put that in Discord. I think that's a really good idea. As far as the game goes and interaction within the game, obviously, I don't know if you were here whenever Rive was going into the in-depth details of the spreadsheets and stuff that we're going to have. But we should be able to build out a FAQ wiki for frequently asked questions about the game, where you can go, how to get that information, etc. So we can build that as we build out the information about the game.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I mean, I guess, as a bigger kind of oversight, I just meant like, somebody joining on day two, they want to know where most of the guild is, what node they are in, how far along people are in their professions, how they can help, what level are people generally at, all of these, general kind of big questions that rather than having to, again, I think even Enshrouded was almost the same thing. I was a little bit late joining that, and I was, again, I was able to pick it up, but it was just kind of rather than bogging the entire guild down with questions and wondering where everybody is, just like maybe, for lack of a better term, having a quick start guide on where can I get in, where can I meet up with people, how can I help out in the current state of time.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a quick start guide is probably something that we could definitely leverage, and I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I agree. That's a really good
Now,
point.
Yeah,
keep in mind,
again,
we will.
I only
We,
bring this up because for the last 3 games that I've been involved in with the guild, like we've had a lot of fun. We've done a lot of stuff. But it's almost been like a rinse and repeat every time where it was like, okay, I'm late to join. Oh my God, what do I do? And then I end up asking everybody these questions every single game. So
yeah,
just,
so I think that's a good call out, right? And definitely something we should plan for. So we can get that set up, especially as terms of the guild and all the other stuff that I covered, right? We can easily get that set up now. And then as far as the game goes, obviously we'll have to get in there before we can provide a whole lot of information.
oh,
But
for sure.
there'll be the capabilities. We'll have channels for questions and various other things. But I think a lot of the leverage of that will be the class leaders, right? And so we won't have that initially because we don't know who's going to play what, who's going to be the best in what classes, etc. But as people come on later on in the game, especially at Go Live, whenever it's not an alpha state or a beta state, we'll have all that prepared, and so we'll have class leaders defined and all that other stuff, and so we can then leverage those people to help assist new members or new people coming into the game on best ways to go about it.
Yeah,
Also, in
absolutely.
terms
And
of all the
for
spreadsheets
sure.
and all the other stuff.
Yeah, I think in having that and also some kind of quick start or reference for new players coming in would definitely, play two parts where they help people out and also they reduce the amount of bogging down of the guild members of, new people coming in and flooding with questions of where do I go and how do I help out? How do I get started?
Yep.
So what I'm taking away from that is a standard operating procedure, essentially like a reference manual that people will be able to reference for those common asked questions. Everyone kind of touched on it, but basically in Alpha 2, that will be like a lot of what we're doing, as we reference that and more information is available on the wiki. We'll be able to compile it into a local channel or document that people will be able to have access to on their entry
Yeah,
to the guild.
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Good question. Good question.
Yeah, for sure. No, I'll close it there, and no, I'm looking forward to getting in with all you guys. We had a lot of fun in Season of Discovery. I met quite a few people in the list. It looks like not everybody, but it kind of sucked having to leave the game because then now I don't get to interface with a lot of the folks on a day-to-day basis. So definitely looking forward to keeping those relationships alive and playing with you guys in Ashes.
Yep, absolutely. Who was next? Ryu? Ryu up here? Get Ryu up here. There he is.
He's up
I'm
here.
up here. Okay. Hey everybody. I'm a Ryu or Ryukrat. I'm on the other side of the world from everybody, so it's like 6:30 in the morning. I'm gonna have to get breakfast soon. So I guess bouncing off of Roar, but I don't really enjoy beating dead horses. I guess this is like a follow-up question to the whole gauntlet, quote unquote, which I think boot camp would be cooler, but what do I know?
We'll call it. Yeah, we'll call it boot camp. The name isn't matter. And honestly, we don't even know if we're gonna do that. It's just a theory, right? I mean, we got to figure out some way to figure out who the best people are, and that maybe that's
and
not the best way.
I think with that, we'll just go through trial and error, but for the time being, if we were to keep it, would we have equal footing with everybody? So, like, for instance, like, I don't know, like, we'll have plenty of time in the Alpha 2 to test it out. But, like, for instance, are we going to be doing, like, a run-up at level 25? Is it going to be level 50? Are we going to be max geared? Because there's just so many... I don't know, there's many... I'm sorry, I can't think of the word, but, like, especially with gear and level and skill and knowledge of the class, there's so many factors. That's the word. There's so many factors that could go into play with, I guess, the gauntlet. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
Oh, I mean,
it's hard to have it like a scientific where there's a control, right? Where there's a perfect like test for everybody where we're fighting the same mobs, they're the same level, you know, and obviously the group compositions are different in some of the group challenges, so it's going to be hard to do it perfectly to where it's fair to everybody, but that's obviously the goal, to make it fair. But at the end of the day, it's going to be very difficult to make it like a perfect system where we may not make mistakes, you know, along the way. In terms of placing people maybe in the wrong spot, you know. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm like the best PvE raider in the history of MMOs. I'm not. Like I don't raid much in PvE in MMOs. I'm a PvPer. I've got some major accomplishments in PvP, but PvE wise, no, I can't say much there. That's why I'm looking for people that can do that stuff. But anyways, Insta, go ahead with whatever you were gonna say.
yeah, so I realized that in terms of actual numbers, gear may play a role, but gear isn't all of it, right? Or level isn't all of it. Skill is very clearly shown. And so I think Roar kind of touched on some of those points, right? Just because you are the highest level and the highest gear doesn't make you very skilled, right? And now in terms of Ashes, there are going to be some aspects of that that are required in order to get some of that gear. But it's going to be you'll be able to show skill in various different aspects and ways throughout our gameplay, right? And so that's going to play a large factor in evaluations.
Yeah, and I don't know how much gear is bound to players in Ashes, but we could create a standardized set of gear for like light, medium, and heavy users. Like we could create a standardized set of gear for tanks. This is you put this on for the gauntlet, and everybody puts this on. It could be a cheaper. It doesn't have to be top tier gear. It could be like a low tier gear, like a cheap set of gear that we just give to all the tanks. Like here, so you guys all have the same gear. Everything's normalized.
Yeah, okay. That
So-
makes a little bit of sense. I remember back when...
Yeah, and if it's not bound, like we don't have to make some for every tank. We can just have the tanks share it with each other, stuff like that. So
I remember there was one guild I led back in New World, and we actually had an officer who had that really good idea for like building our core PvP group, just throwing iron armor with all the weak, crappy jewelry on everybody with the weapons, and just have them go all out at each other in like little 4 or 5 minutes. So, okay.
Yep.
Cool. I think that's about it for me.
Sure.
So.
Well, thanks for the question. Appreciate it.
Of course.
Biggs, you are up next. If you want to accept the invite there. And he may have stepped away for a moment. His wife might be getting after him for talking to his internet friends. I think that's... Oh, there he's here. He's here.
There he is.
That's what he called us. That's what his wife called us earlier. Biggs, I think you have to go down to the bottom and click on talk on the stage or something like that. I've sent the invite to you. There you go. Now you're here.
Okay. Yeah, I had to zoom out. I was zoomed in too far. Okay, my question revolves around the hardcore initiate section, I guess. Screen back up. Okay, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, but as for the initiate stuff, is that going to be more like a training, like a training camp, if you will, like boot camp? Let's just say you got somebody who's a casual player, but they're wanting to go hardcore. They're wanting to get into like some sort of like raiding for the PvE stuff, or maybe they want to get into like some PvP stuff, but they're really not that good. But hey, they got a can-do attitude. And they're dependable. So they could make a really good teammate with some proper training. Would there be anything along the lines of like like once a week or once every so often, like a specific date, like hey, we got this training session coming up, anybody interested, make an event for it, to help try to get people from the initiate into like a special squad, if you will.
That's a good idea. I haven't really thought of that. We'll do that. I see no reason why we can't do something like that. We're going to have the class leaders, and we're going to have, the PvE leaders, the PvP leaders that could all be involved in something like that. How often we do it, I don't know. But that's something that we'll do that for sure. That's a great idea.
Cool.
And
All right,
to answer your question on the initiate role, like basically, I'm gonna start using that more, and it's just gonna be like if you can't link me an armor here, like a raid log or some sort of PvP accomplishments in the future, I'll probably be putting most people that are recruited into the guild in that initiate role until they can prove that they're worthy of full membership, through gameplay.
Yep.
It has been a benefit for a lot of people that joined early that I've bypassed putting a lot of people in initiate that might have been an initiate otherwise, just because they didn't have something they could link me as some sort of kind of evidence. Right now, not that is definitive proof either. Like you can link anything, and it still doesn't mean that you're still a good player. You'll be a good player in Ashes, but Alexander, do we want to bring
you're gonna answer it.
Alexander up? He's got a lot of questions. Should we bring him up?
Yep. Got it. I was actually getting ready to address his question, but I think bringing him up and letting him introduce himself is more than.
Yeah, I mean, you could go ahead and which ones? Go ahead and answer whichever ones you were going to answer.
It was specific to the gauntlet, whether it grants or denies access into the hardcore guild or not, and that wasn't the intent of it.
No.
The intent of the gauntlet is to define the most qualified people for the special forces team, right? And depending on how the gameplay goes and various aspects of the game, we may have anywhere from range of 1 to many special forces teams, right? Because there's so much that we can only theorize about it. And so a lot of the questions that we're answering, though we're providing you an answer now, those answers may change. Because when we get into the game, and the game may be different than what we've read in the wiki or watched in live streams or various other data sets, right? Some of that and structure and functionality that we've defined may change. I want to insert the Steven, this is an alpha and this is variable to change. I think that applies to very, very much of our layout right now.
Yep. Yeah, this is all, we're in alpha testing still, basically. So as a guild, we're going to have, like I said, we're not going to be perfect right out the gate. Don't expect this guild to be like, mythic level raiders right at the gate. If you're expecting that, you're in the wrong guild. I'll just put it out there. This isn't going to be a finely tuned machine. We've been around since last October. And I haven't brought people from some of my previous guilds, some of the people that I knew, just because some of them I didn't, if they want to join, they can join through the normal channels, but a lot of them have their own guilds that they're in. Arena ranking could be used as a metric potentially. Yeah, Bob, for sure. But yeah, the Gauntlet spreadsheet, like getting into hardcore A, it could matter for that. Hardcore B is just going to be more about like people that are active and relatively confident in their ability to hit their buttons in a certain order that they're needed to be hit in, right? Like it's not necessarily perfect yet, but like getting into hardcore guild A will not be easy, and certainly getting into the special teams will not be easy, and that's where the gauntlet will come into play. If we even use the gauntlet, which we probably will use some variation of that, but that's all conceptual. I put that together in like half hour, so don't read too much into that spreadsheet and the numbers and all that theoretical shit I put on there, because we don't obviously we don't know yet exactly how we would even do that. Alexander, if you have anything to add.
Sorry, I was in the presentation, not my main Discord, so I didn't see that I had been invited. So I guess the first question I have is, well, back to basics. How do we define hardcore? Because and the reason I ask that is this: if hardcore one team, guild rather, the highest hardcore guild, is accepting people to, well, all special forces teams come from hardcore one, right?
Yes, that's correct. As of now, we could eventually have some teams in hardcore 2, but for now it's hardcore 1. Yes.
Right. So and second follow-up question: hardcore special forces teams are 8 people, right?
Yeah, because that's the group size. That's kind of the idea for now. Yeah.
Okay, so if we have assuming we have 3 teams, that takes up 24 people. That's literally half of hardcore 1. So the point I'm trying to make with this question is, if all our special forces teams pulled from hardcore 1, and if the gauntlet is used to get people into hardcore 1, is the gauntlet as an uncustomized, non-individualized metric not being given too much importance and standing?
Oh, so I think you missed my answer to the gauntlet statement. The gauntlet isn't intended to be used to go from any hardcore section to another hardcore section. It's only
Right,
intended to be used for special forces building.
Yes, I saw that, but what I'm trying to get at is how I don't understand that. Can you just explain that to me now?
Yeah, well, I mean, keep in mind this is, again, as I mentioned before, this is all theory crafting, right? But we're doing the best we can at being prepared for what we expect things to be. And so we're talking about a game and guild logistics for a game that doesn't exist yet, right?
Yeah.
So in theory, you don't have to be set forth in terms of a gauntlet or testing or whatever you want to call it to get from casual to hardcore guild 3 or hardcore guild 2 or hardcore guild 1, even if we end up in that structure, right? That may not be the structure we end up going with because we may not benefit from it. There'll be various subsets of testing in order to find out whether small guild versus large guild, what's going to benefit us the best, right? So we talk now about 3 different hardcore guilds, but we may actually end up being one hardcore guild and one casual guild, or maybe
Right, I
just all
get
in one guild, right? So there's so much to be variable here that I have a hard time answering your question directly because I don't know the answer until we get to that point.
Well, then I think it has to go back to the original question of, can we define hardcore? Because you seem to be going, and here's what I mean by that. You seem to be going an inclusive route, whereas I'm going a more exclusive route. Because I don't see how a gauntlet, which pretty much anyone can learn to game, and I'm not saying game as in get good, I'm saying game as in play the system of the gauntlet. I don't see how that should be used as a special forces team's indicator. Do you see where I'm coming from?
Well, so I think that's what Rive talked about earlier. Whenever we mentioned the gauntlet sheet, it's not specific to that. There would be other factors of it that aren't on there, right? So, just because we may have somebody in here that is a phenomenal gamer, but isn't capable of having appropriate conversations, not that they'd end up staying in the guild anyway, but various other aspects of that, right? That means that we wouldn't have them in that consideration, right? Because you're going to have to be able to do all of the above and not just some of the above. And so just because you can be a phenomenal statistical player doesn't mean that you're going to be a good leader or a good shot caller or various other aspects of the expectations of the Special Forces team.
Yeah, we're going to factor in multiple things. That could end up being
Sure.
30% of it. That could end up being 70% of it. I'm talking about the Gauntlet, but we don't know what the percentage of that will even be if we even use it. But I mean, we might be able to just figure it out through gameplay. And ideally, I'd love it if we could do that, because then that's less work for the officers. Because the other thing is, in order for that spreadsheet to work, we need a lot of data in it. We need basically everybody in the guild to go through it, so we know what is a good score and what's a bad score. And we need to have standardized gear for everybody. And the officers have to record all this shit in the spreadsheet, and we have to make sure we're pulling the same mob pack every time. We have to make sure, like in the PvP duels, we've got to have okay, so it's a rogue, so you're a rogue. Like, we've got to have one guy that is the designated duelee. That is a good rogue that you're dueling against. But that rogue, might after 10 duels get a little tired and he's not playing as well, and then so that guy, somebody's going to get a better score than they normally would have. So it's very difficult to make that work necessarily perfectly. So that's why it can't be like 90% of it, right? It would never work.
Of course.
So it has to be 30% of it. And then, for me, like, communication is huge, especially in PvP. Like, the ability to communicate effectively without clogging up chat and quickly get your message across. And I've got 5 incoming northeast wall. Using cardinal directions and things like that. I've got 5 incoming to my position means nothing, because we don't necessarily know who's talking. You've got to use your, Rive has 5 incoming northeast gate. That kind of thing versus I have 5 incoming is a completely different thing, right? So things like that, things that can being able to communicate effectively in that regard is like a huge thing. And it's not just
really
skill.
too many factors.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, so really too many factors, both in the terms of seeing how they cooperate or work and seeing what the game does. I get it. All right. The only question, I guess, that is relevant anymore is the one that I asked about Caravan/open world PvP coordinators and Special Forces leaders. So Special Forces teams leaders, if I'm understanding them correctly, have a very specialized job, whereas Caravan and/or open world PvP coordinators, there is some specialization, but they have a more generalized job. So therefore, generalized there's more knowledge, but less. It's a generalization. So why would an SF leader run a caravan just because the high value caravan? Like, wouldn't it be better to have the caravan coordinator send one of his or her people to lead that caravan and then embed an SF team into that escort team as an additional escort?
It depends. Obviously, we don't have a game yet, so it's really hard to say what is best. I mean, we're probably gonna have people that like to run caravans, right? And that's part of it too. Like, I don't want to force people oh, you're a really good PvPer. Oh, now you got to run caravans all the time, because honestly, caravans could be boring a lot of times. So I'm not gonna be subject people to something that they don't want to do. Like, some people are not gonna want to do caravans, and even if they're a great PvPer, if they don't want to do caravans, I'm not gonna force them to do that, right? Now, if it's a super high value caravan, we're going to have a big raid group. It's going to be a big deal, right? But, in general, the people that want to run caravans might work with the caravan coordinator and do that, especially if it's not a high value caravan.
Well, reason I ask is a few reasons, but like for instance, I'm potentially very interested in the caravan and open world PvP coordinator spot. But I'm also, yeah, I know, Yurt, I'm theory crafting for a game that doesn't exist. But I'm also potentially interested in, well, no, I'm definitely interested in serving on a special forces team eventually. Working up to there, of course, but it's where I want to be eventually. So, I mean, ideally, wouldn't, and like Yurt said, this is theory crafting for a game that quite literally doesn't exist. But theoretically and ideally, wouldn't the caravan coordinator be a competent PvPer, ideally in a special forces team, but also specially dedicated to caravans and open world PvP?
Well, I think all the PvP leaders will be skilled in PvP, and before they get to any kind of PvP role.
Right.
Yeah.
And then just to add on to that, a lot of the officers will have multiple hats. So the officer that is wearing those hats will, have higher expectations as far as, commitment and coordinating, being the spearhead to coordinate those events. So like you mentioned, getting essentially having a list pre-prepared if you're going to be running caravans of who's going to be able to participate and at what time frames those people will be able to participate in. Those are part of the responsibilities that come with the position. So a lot of that will come tied into that. But to add on to what Rive was mentioning, it's not going to be something that's forced, and it's just about finding the person that's going to take that initiative to coordinate it and get that fully fledged group of caravanners and PvPers or defenders that are willing and able to be a part of that.
Yep.
Some additional thoughts on that as well is like some of the guys that are doing other caravan theory crafting. We are putting a lot of speculation on the system of caravans that it might be a rare thing. So as Rive said, it could be extremely boring because I think it was Cash or something. Like if the world is as big as it seems as big as it's going to be, the caravan system there might not be a lot of fights for it because the amount of travel needed to catch up to a caravan. Like you could find out about a caravan, it could be halfway across the map, and they could finish the caravan by the time you get up to the spot where they are. So,
Right.
but as a coordinator as well, who as the economic lead, I'm going to have my fingers in the caravans. I don't necessarily want to run them or participate in them, but as a coordinator, I'm going to be going, okay, to whoever's doing the team lead for that, be like, okay, guys, we need to get this caravan from point B to point C, and then it's up to you guys to figure out how to do it. Like, we just need to get these mats transported to wherever they need to go. So, like, Viggs can do leatherworking or something that, depending on how the caravan system actually works in game. So,
Sorry, Biggs, you did leatherworking one time in Pax Day. Now you're permanently hard
Yep, you're
leatherworker,
stuck with
it. He says, "Damn it." I think rowing had a expansion off of your question, Alex. Rowing, do you want to come up and ask it, or do you want us to just address it from the chat?
I will leave the stage. Thank you guys for answering my question.
Yeah, no problem, Alex. Feel free to ask anything else too. We'll be glad to pull you back up.
Yep.
Certainly, yeah.
Thank.
All right, rowing. You should have the invite option. You may have to scroll to the bottom to actually see the button to join up here.
We are pushing about 2 hours now, so probably we'll wrap it up here pretty soon. Rowing probably has a question here. Let him up, and if anybody else has a question, get it in here pretty soon. We're gonna kind of get through this here pretty soon and wrap it up.
Yeah, I think rowing's the last question, at least the last one that I've seen, unless somebody's asked something that I missed. If you want to call that back out in chat.
Yeah, Raz getting a little old, He's got to go. Don's giving me shit for being up this late, I'm sure.
Okay. So essentially, going off of what Alex said, what I get from all of that is that, or at least from the conversation, was that a hardcore A and B will have very similar traits, I guess, to their members' activities. I don't want to like classify necessarily these like players as such, because like we're not like a highly competitive, like you must actively participate in certain like I don't know, like training events or whatnot, like all like weekly or whatnot. So I'm hesitant to classify these things, but from my gist at least, is it like obviously activeness will be a priority within these two, especially if you're in the hardcore in the A guild. And then B will be just for people probably you're like I don't want to say general, but like for I assume like Grim, I'm gonna put you on the spot here, but Grim and I probably will fall in this category, or just from seeing how much we play Enshrouded and Nightingale and whatnot. So like stuff like that, I assume. And then you have to be able to communicate. You have to still have you can't just be bad in almost any situation. You have to have the mechanics to back it up. And then I added in works with multiple groups, as in like you can essentially place this is probably for more part A. I don't know if we'll do the guard groups. I forget who, I think it was Doug Bug who brought it up. For the casual members, but it was like provide like ready-made groups from the 3 other guilds that are available to help casual players like do stuff, or like anyone in general, I guess, to help the 8-player groups like mash up. So you have to be good at that bit. And then hardcore C people will there'll be a lesser version of that, I assume, or for initiates who want to engage more and get up to the other 2 tiers, they'll sit in there to try and get up there. And then casual people will be for people who don't have large commitments, but still want to like to have the access to a large group, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah. So in the same scenario, right? Just because if we end up going segregated guilds, right?
Mhm.
Assuming that's the route we end up going, and that's the plan. But that doesn't mean that that's not going to change, right? But in those particular terms, we're still all one large guild, and so it doesn't make a difference whether you're part of A or part of casual. It doesn't make a difference. You guys are still objected to play together if you want or not, whatever you choose to do, right? We're not determining your game style or anything like that. We're just trying to put forth the best effort we can to be competitive as a guild, and that's the goal.
So yeah. So if your play style fits like 1 week, I assume it's a generalized version of what your play style is, not like 1 week you're really active, 1 week you're less active, 1 week you're really like it's
Yeah,
more
it'll be a bunch
pretty.
of factors. Activeness will only be a some factor of it, right?
Mhm.
There'll be a ton of factors associated to it: skill, activeness, functionality, all different kinds of variable factors, right?
Mhm.
So I know that earlier we were talking about the whole Gauntlet spreadsheet and heavily lying on that factor, but there's so many other factors that play a role.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you're touching on. I think that's what we're trying to get to, right? So there'll be a lot of it, like I mentioned before, there'll be a lot of this that'll probably change, but we're just trying to be as prepared as we can for launch, and then update and manipulate as we see fit based on the actual game.
Yeah, I think the factors is what I guess most of us are not concerned about, or more questioning about what are those factors, and then because like I guess we just want to know for the future to figure out what it is we have to do to get where we want to be.
Yeah, I think
Or
to answer that specifically, we have to be able to get in there to be able to answer it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
there's the obvious ones, right? Obviously, you're going to need to be able to be whatever slide it was, slide 2, I think. You got to be a good person, right? But you kind of need to be that to be in the guild. And then, you got to be able to communicate. You got to be able to dictate and appropriately define items like map coordinates or location or various other things, right? Depending on how you handle those situations in high stress scenarios, it could play a large factor in that. Those are some
Yeah.
of the examples that I can at least throw out there.
Yeah, pretty much answers the question. Yeah.
J-Rock, haven't seen you in a while, man. Thanks, Rowing.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, I've been like neck deep in like gaming and like real life stuff. I had some family stuff going on, so I just haven't really been super social. I don't really so much have a question as much as I kind of have like feedback on what I kind of like I stepped on when I kind of came in mad late. With speaking to caravans, this is how I vision it based off of what I've seen and what I heard y'all saying. We should probably, when you break down the leadership, it should essentially follow like an actual military form and pass through all the S stations. Rive kind of knows what I'm talking about, where it goes like S1, S2, S3, S3. But now it doesn't have to be called that. But all the people that would have a part in it that would be able to look at it. That way, it doesn't take anybody to be an expert, a novice, as long as they understand how we run things based off of our intel and our feedback can run a caravan. So like Don would definitely have his hands in it if it's super rare stuff. So then it would be how many actual caravans, which one is actually going to be carrying the stuff. What your special forces, really good PvPers are going to contribute is they're going to know all the bottlenecks and all the high PvP things going on around the route, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And if everybody contributes their piece for like the more important caravans, it allows pretty much anybody to run it. And I feel like that we should try and be almost Swiss Army knife like. Let me know if I stepped on something like y'all already kind of went over, or if my understanding was bad.
No, I think that's some of what Rive covered in the guild structure as well, and the different layout of the guilds. So I think that was a pretty good summary of it right there.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, J-Rock. That caravan planning isn't just going to be one person, especially the high value ones. No, I think that's a good point. Don's going to be involved. I'll be involved, and still be involved. Everybody. And there's going to be more officers in the future that will certainly be involved in, planning out caravans. That's going to be a very important thing that we'll have to get right. So.
And then what about? And my question would be, mules. Didn't they say 10 times what we can carry? Our mules can carry 10 times what we can carry.
That's correct. Yep. Yeah, mules will be. We might run mules instead of caravans a lot.
Because for like super critical items that we don't necessarily have a whole lot of, it might make sense for your SF teams to run their mules and like go off somewhere really wonky and do it that way as well.
So
that's my biggest question about the caravan system is things going to be like so big they only fit in a caravan, or is it about moving massive amount of things, or we don't know yet?
To touch on that, I'm sorry to interrupt. One of the potentials is when it comes to crates, the crate system for caravans, the value and quantity gets diminished when you're not using one versus you are, and that may also play into how mules factor into the values of transportation with them. Okay. But that's a really good point. It can just become more useful and efficient that way as well.
And that's what you're saying, J-Rock, that goes around with like rare resources, but there are other things that caravans can do that other like doing the mule thing won't do. So like node resources, which are specific, basically just node packages that have to be carried from node to node using using the caravan.
Using the caravan, yeah, they did that in so many games played. But yeah, I know exactly what you're about. So it's essentially a box that's called resources, and only a caravan can carry it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure node commodities are only going to be caravans. I think I'm pretty sure that'll be the case, and I have a feeling glint commodities might only be able to be transported via caravan, because really the glint commodities are the Arcade trade packs, kind of reimagined in Ashes, and obviously trade packs, you could only carry that stuff in a trade pack, right? So I think that's a lot of stuff's going to be forced. They want to force this caravan system, right? So I think your mules, I mean, we could absolutely run in a caravan, right? And we could have the people that are escorting the caravan on mules to carry more shit as well. I think that's a good idea. And then also, your mules are used for, you're out gathering a lot. You pop your mule out so you can put more shit on your mule while you're gathering, right? And obviously your mule can still be killed, so it's a risk, but that's another use for the mule.
Right. Okay.
So real quick before we close this, there's quite a few people in the audience that I haven't talked to previously. So I do want to welcome you before we close out this. You guys are welcome to jump into public chat with us anytime, and just chat in. You don't have to play the game that we're playing or anything else. Feel free to jump in and just BS with us anytime you want.
Absolutely, yeah. We'll be paying attention to like attendance on some of this stuff, and we tracked attendance on this. And, we're going to be reaching out to some of these. There are people that I have not heard from since they joined the guild, and we're going to reach out to some of those people and see if they're even still, in this guild technically, or if they've moved on. Yeah, Paulie, get a GeoGuessr game started for us if you'd like, buddy. We could do some of that. But yeah, we've been playing GeoGuessr and stuff like that in the lobby. I mean, if you're really bored and want to talk to some nerds about spreadsheets and how to get really sweaty on spreadsheets and of course how to improve your PvP by getting better at geography, or we'll be in the voice chat doing that.
That's fancy. But now geography's going to play a big factor.
Yeah.
Big factor.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, I appreciate everybody being here. I am going to stop the recording now. So it's very long here. It's a 2 hours and 11-minute recording here.